Today I wanted to do something a little bit different and criticize the commenters on my videos. Now, the Heather Antucci draft trial transcripts have racked up about a couple hundred comments, probably more if you include other videos. And I'm going to criticize the commenters and subscribers of the channel for not asking a question that they should have asked. And bring this up just to, let's call this a lesson in critical thinking. Now, I've made multiple videos in which I discuss the issue of Charles C. Miller. Now, why is Charles C. Miller important? A brief recap. Heather has stated multiple times that she got her UCC paperwork and the OPPT trust filings, etc., from Charles C. Miller. This has been known from at least 2011. Now, here's the thing. There is a Charles C. Miller that is also, there is a Charles C. Miller who in 1998 was sentenced to 12 years in jail for passing bad checks. Now, in all videos that I have done about this topic, nobody has asked, how do we know that the Charles C. Miller who Heather got her UCC paperwork from and the Charles C. Miller who was convicted in who was sentenced in 1998, he was arrested earlier. But how do we know that they are both the same Charles C. Miller? Because Charles Miller is almost like John Smith. It's a very common name. So how do we know that they are the same person? Now, because I have nothing better to do, I have paid for a lot of Charlie Miller's filings from his criminal case, and they are all up on Court Listener because I use the the Court Listener plugin, which uploads all the PACER documents to their archive so people don't want to see them freely. Okay, so how do we know that the Charles Miller, the guy who was accused and sentenced in 1998, is the same one that filed the UCC filings? Okay, so at the top we have Charles Miller's signature from the UCC filings. He filed in 2000. At the middle, we have his signature from some of the letters he filed in his criminal case, and a second signature he filed in his criminal case. Now, if we look at the C's, they are the same. He likes to start his C's upward stroke and then down and to the left, down and to the right. So the C's are the same. Now, unfortunately, he wrote his name in all caps, so we can't compare the rest of the letters. But if you look at the M is the same. He likes them like that. We also look, the other similarities here are that, let me clean this up for you guys. All his writing is leaning to the right. Yeah, if you notice, all leans to the right. If you look at the E in particular, the capital letter E, it's almost identical. Let me see, what else was there? The L's are almost the same. The S is also very similar. Blah blah. So basically, this is the same signature. This is the guy with this is the same signature for the same guy. Even though it's these signatures are almost a decade apart. There are also other little hints that this is the same guy. Excuse me. Now, there's other little hints that show that this is the same guy. If you notice, in one of the UCC filings from 2011, he starts writing his name with a colon, Charles C. Miller, which is a David Wynn Miller thing. Going back to this letter from 2007, we see that filed in his criminal case. We see that Miller started using the Charles C. Miller as in his paper. We started writing his name as Charles C. Miller, showing again this is the same guy. Other little things that show that this is the same guy. He's filing UCC paperwork into his criminal case. If you see Uniform Trust Code, well, actually, wait, that's not the one. Excuse me. Anyways, if you from the letter from 2007, we see that Miller uses quote nunc pro tunc in his filings. The other gigantic red flag is that if you see here, he gives his legal estate of the decedent. Oh, let me get a little marker thingy. Does this work? Yeah. Okay. If you see here, it says decedent Charles C. Miller, account number 516580475. Now again, this is from his. Wait, hold on. Now again, this is from his criminal case, 297 blah blah blah, in 2007. Over here in the UCC filings, which Heather relies upon, is the entire foundational basis for the OPPT. We see Miller gives the entity organizational ID as 516580475, the exact same number he gives in the criminal case as his account number nunc pro tunc. So, among other things, we have his signature is identical. What appears to be his social security number is identical. If you notice, the verbiage is the same. They're both using UCC paperwork in a criminal case. He signs his name the same. What else? He uses nunc pro tunc, and if you notice, his criminal case was in Washington State, so as soon as he got out, Heather was living in Washington State, so as soon as Miller gets out, they're living in the same area, Heather and Miller, and they do a bunch of stuff, which we've discussed on Quatloose and Fogbow. I'm not going to make a video about everything because I'm still trying to figure out what the hell they were trying to do. For example, in one of the 2012 UCC filings, Miller cites as grantor, the public trust. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Tucci and Sons, which is Heather's family's business, the Federal Reserve Bank, Charles C. Miller, Huss Christopher. I haven't looked that guy up. Ben Bernanke, Eisenhower Carlson. But interestingly, Michael A. Tucci and Michael F. Tucci. I think this one is her brother and the dad. I'm not particularly sure. It's not clear, but it kind of looks like to me like Heather was trying to sue her brother for something, which is just confusing. So to answer a question that nobody asked on the comments, but the Free at Last blog did actually raise this issue. Quote, Charles Miller is an extremely common name as well as mine. I've looked up my name on the internet and found at least 10 people with my name. Essentially, well, he doesn't state it explicitly, but his excuse is that, another guy, Drake, I'm not sure if he got the research from me. Well, a number of people were looking up Charles C. Miller and discussed it, including Drake, which is a weirdo. But anyways, Free at Last raises the issue of Charles Miller is an extremely common name. How do we know that the Charles Miller that filed the UCC filings and that went to jail for 12 or 10 years, 12 years, yeah. How do we know it's the same person? For the reasons I just gave. And if you need a reminder of why this is important, it is because, where we go. Anyways, if you need a reminder of why this is important, it is because Miller went to jail for writing $100 million in bogus checks. That it doesn't explain it here, but essentially they were drawing on, again, non-existent federal accounts, saying that those checks would be covered by the federal government. And if you really want some irony here, Miller's co-defendant, Verrill Knowles, quote, used checks he had printed himself and drawn on non-existent liens against the federal government to, quote, purchase 2 luxury vehicles from local dealers. So again, Miller and his buddies went to jail for trying to buy luxury vehicles with checks drawing on essentially fake accounts in 1995. And in 2018, Heather and Randy go to jail for the exact same thing, except this time with ACH transfers instead of checks. And by the way, Knowles and Miller were taught by Leroy Schweitzer, who is leader of the Montana Freemen. This is Charles Miller is where Heather gets her UCC quote unquote knowledge. It's fake UCC law that was taught by Leroy Schweitzer in the 90s, used by Miller, sent Miller to jail, and sent Heather to jail in 2018. There is audio and video of a guy claiming to be Miller. That mentions his his incarceration and criminal record that you could listen to, but unfortunately, I can't verify whether this is the same guy. I'm not a cop. I don't have access to mug shots and all that. The only thing I can go off is documents, which are public record. Finally. Miller is released August 21st of 2009. If you go over to the Washington Recorder of Deeds website, Miller starts filing UCC bogus filings in March of 2010. What would that be? 6 months after his release from prison. So literally literally 6 months after being released from jail, he starts filing bogus UCC liens, UCC filings, and basically continuing the same crap that got him in jail. By the way, I noticed that in 2015, I guess I didn't notice this because OPPT was basically dead at this point. Anyways, in 2015, Miller starts filing UCC liens, attempting to, I don't even know what he's trying to do here. I guess he's trying to say that the U.S. Social Security Administration owes him money for some reason. Miller is now 68 years old, but can't imagine that he's getting a lot of money from Social Security. By the way, keep in mind here, the nunk-pro-tunk stuff he filed, that he's writing nunk-pro-tunk, which is, again, the nunk-pro-tunk, patera, all this crap, Heather gets from Charles C. Miller, a convicted felon in it.
No, I went and did everyone.
Right.
from that beautiful man, Charlie C. Miller's original work that he did with actually people from, regarding the Federal Reserve, U.S. Treasury, etc. I mean, everyone actually worked on all of this.